You took a deep breath before you spoke. You promised yourself to stay poised, calm, and peaceful before you approach the situation. And yes, you chose your words very carefully. And yet, you were shut down by the silence and even worse, a smirk. And then you snapped. Not because you wanted to, but then you felt compelled from within to show that reaction of maybe screaming. But then you again crawled into guilt. You said, "This is not what I am. This was not the reaction I wanted to give away because I had approached it with peace." Have you ever walked out of a conversation where you intended a peaceful ending, but then it just resulted in more chaos? If you have experienced such a thing, then this episode is for you. Because in this episode, let's deep dive into the psychology of how we can respond rather than react. Hi, I'm Vaishnavi, and welcome back to the Holistic Homemakers podcast. And we are in the series called Rooted. And today is the episode 2, where we are going to really deep dive into this topic called how do we respond rather than react. And yes, of course, we are going to deal with a situation where you approach with complete peace of mind, but then you are shut down by something not very pleasant, and you are compelled to react rather than respond. But then in this episode, let us explore the ways in which we can still maintain a response rather than a reaction to such situations. So, without any further ado, let's get into the video and let's explore what is important for us to understand as homemakers and try to stay rooted in our emotional strength. Let's start. Let me take you all through a very familiar scene as homemakers. Sneha, a homemaker and a mother of two. She is absolutely exhausted for the past 2 weeks, and this is the weekend. And she has complete empathy for her husband too, because she knows her husband works so hard for the entire week, and it's only the weekend that he gets time to relax, rewind, and have some time for himself too. But then there is a situation where she's feeling so exhausted and she wants the work to be accomplished in a given time frame. So, with complete peace of mind and the empathy in her heart, she approaches her husband and she says, "Could you please help me with the dishes?" And her husband doesn't even lift his head to acknowledge that she's in the room, and he's so busy with the phone, and he just passes a comment saying that it's only the housework that you are supposed to do and you can't do it that as well. You're tired all the time. And imagine, Sneha felt so broken from within listening to such harsh statements, and she just lost it. So she screams, she, kind of takes her frustration by slamming the kitchen drawers, and immediately, within no minute, she feels guilty about her reaction. She feels, "I could have chosen a response rather than this reaction." And she feels so bad because she had approached with complete poise in her tone and with her intention, yet she was shut down and she was forced to go for a reaction like this. As I said, most of us can relate to this, and it may not be just between the husband and wife. It can be in any given scenario. This happens at times, right? We approach with a peaceful intention, but we are shut down so badly, and that literally pushes us towards showing some kind of reaction. But the good news is, in today's episode, I will let you know exactly how we can still choose to have a response rather than reaction in such situations. So let us try and understand, let us analyze what is the psychology behind such a response, and how do we stop ourselves from having a reaction and a guilt that follows after it. So let's not delay, and let's start and analyzing it. Let us try and understand firstly why it feels so much hurting when we face such a situation. Now, let me make it very clear to you that if we are approaching a particular situation, or if we are speaking to the other person with complete anger, and we are not poised at all, and we know that the reaction that I'm going to get from the other person is going to be equal or even maybe more than the anger that I am showing right now. So it's like we expect it, we are ready for it, and we do not expect anything other than that. so we do not feel so very hurt in such situation. But in a situation like this, where you have the clarity in your thoughts that yes, your intentions are very pure, it's peaceful, and you are being very poised within, and then you're approaching and still you get shut down, it is that moment that you get hurt. So understand the difference between it and then try and treat your situations accordingly. At this point, let me first share a very inspirational story of the person called Viktor Frankl, an Austrian psychiatrist and a philosopher who spent years in the Nazi concentration camps. He lost everything, his family, his career, everything. But his words have transformed lives of millions. He says that you can take away everything from a man, but not one thing, which is called the attitude in that particular man that he chooses at times of challenges or at times when he has to show a response or a reaction. Such beautiful words from such a man who has undergone so much of uh, harsh things in life. And also he says that there is a space in between the stimulus and the response in a particular situation that comes from a person. It is in that space that we have the power. Think about it. So, all I want to say is a person who spent so many years in Nazi concentration camps, and yet he says that yes, we do have the power to respond and not to react. His words, according to me, are magical. As homemakers, of course, we have our own share of challenges, be it in our chores or with relationships that we deal with day in and day out. But listening to the stories and words of such inspirational men, I think we can give it a thought that not everything is very harsh in life. And yes, we have the power, as he says, and that power is called the response towards every situation. Here are a few steps that we can understand and use in our practical lives when we have to face such situation wherein we can respond rather than reacting. So let's understand each step properly. The number one step is to recognize the wound behind the trigger. So when we actually experience a kind of trigger in any particular situation, instead of just giving the reaction without kind of mindlessly, rather than giving any reaction mindlessly, what we need to do, we need to analyze, we need to understand what was that wound behind the trigger. For example, if anybody talks in a very insulting way, let's understand what's the wound, let us understand what's the emotion within me that happens at that particular moment. It can be an emotion of anger, disappointment, frustration, whatever it is. Try and label it, try and name it within your heart, within your mind. The beautiful thing about doing this is that is by recognizing the wound or understanding the emotion behind the trigger, is that you are sending a signal to your nervous system, which will in turn soothe you in a way that now that you recognize the emotion, you can bundle it up rather than just going haywire about it. You know, you can understand that this is the emotion that I'm dealing with. Usually what happens, we do not understand the emotion that we are dealing with, and we just give an kind of auto reaction. It's like very mindlessly, we do not understand what is happening, but yes, we know that we have to react. So let's avoid that. Let's understand, let's recognize the wound that's behind the trigger. So this is going to be the first step. The second step is a very powerful step. You need to pause with power and not suppression. So when you actually deal with such situation, I'm not saying that response means you don't, give any answer, or you don't kind of understand the situation and just walk away. No, that will not solve any problem for you. When I say pause, it only means that you need to just take out that kind of time in between, as we say, the space between the stimulus and your response. You need to recognize the power of that space. That space is nothing but the pause that you will take. So it's very necessary you pause, you understand the situation, and always promise yourself not to mindlessly react for everything. that pause is very important. In that pause, you will have a self conversation. The first step, you recognize the wound, that is, you recognized your emotion. And in the second step, you're taking a pause to make yourself ready for the next course of action. And the next course of action is obviously going to be a response, not a reaction. The third step is also equally vital. It says respond, but with boundaries, and that too you need to respond later. Nobody forces you or compels you to show your response or reaction there and then. You have the pause, you have the time, you have the freedom to understand what's happening around you and within you. So, after that pause, you need to understand that you have to respond later, but you need to respond it with boundaries. So, once the situation calms down, once the situation is over, that is when you need to analyze from within, and then you need to respond in a way. Maybe it can be like, you approach the person and actually make them understand. I approached you with complete peacefulness, and I did not understand why I was shut down so mercilessly. And while you are actually having a conversation like this, make sure that your boundaries are intact. You do not allow that person to again attack you or make you feel sorry about anything. It is just that you are trying to convey your concerns, but again, in the most poised and peaceful way. Here, you're not reacting again, and that is your power. The last step is creating an exit, and that should be done in a very it should be an inner strategy, so to say. When I say create an exit plan, it means, if the person is constantly triggering you, in a very inner level, you need to make yourself understand that this is a time to walk away. Take a 10 minutes break from the entire situation. And when I say walk away, it doesn't mean it's your weakness. It is just that you're protecting your emotional stability. You're protecting yourself emotionally, rather. So walking away becomes very necessary. It can be just 10 minutes. You just leave the place, and it is like, you're not demanding for respect, or you're not asking for respect. You're showing how you need to be respected, and that will be done through walking away. And again, walking away doesn't mean that you're trying to punish the other person. It is just that you're protecting yourself emotionally. So keep all these things in your mind and understand that it's your power to respond. And reaction is something that is expected of you anyway. But if you go the other way around and you surprise that person by responding rather than reacting, that will show that you have the power in this entire dynamic of the situation. This is a very gentle reminder to you, to make you understand that the reaction of the other person is never your responsibility. Please keep that in mind. The reaction of the other person is completely that person's responsibility. Your job is to stay poised, calm, and peaceful in any given situation. And that will show the power that you have within you. So do not blame yourself for a particular situation, because you are very clear in your thoughts that you always approached a particular thing with utmost peaceful intentions in your mind. So remember, the responsibility of the reaction of the other person is completely of that person and not yours. Let me end this episode with a few powerful lines. Please remember that you're not too sensitive. Please remember that you are not very reactive after being unheard, even after 10 attempts of yours to be heard by the other person. You're not yelling, you're not screaming, you're not overreacting. You are human, and this happens. Keep that in mind, but also at the same time, keep in mind that you have all the power to understand how well you can respond rather than react in any given situation. These are vital things that we need to understand and empower ourselves in order to make ourselves rooted in our emotional strength. If this episode resonated with you in any form, then please do consider to share it with your sister, mother, or a friend who is really in need of this. Let us share our knowledge and let us build a community of beautiful homemakers who are completely rooted in their emotional strength. That's the intention of the series, and that's the intention of this particular episode, too. That's all for today's episode. I hope you liked it, and if yes, then please do consider to leave your feedback in the comments below. That's all for today. Take care of yourselves and stay rooted.